Mike White leads the backup QB takeover,
The Green Bay Packers have toppled the unbeaten Cardinals.
and injuries and trades have shaken up the NFL.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection. I'm Nick Rudman, joined as always by my co-host Andrew Mize. We are not a show with the same talking heads you see on big sports media. We don't have the fancy suits or the big budgets. We got to make up for it by being ridiculously smart and ridiculously good looking.
That's right, Nick. And because we're the exact opposite of big sports media, we need your help. We need your support. So if you can like, comment, and subscribe on our videos, watch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your listening pleasure may be, we greatly appreciate it. We have a great show today, so let's get into it. Our first topic today, the Green Bay Packers have toppled the Arizona Cardinals in the desert. I'm going to let you start off on this one, Nick.
Yeah, this is an absolutely surprise for everybody except you and I. We both picked it on our special Thursday episode last week. I'm going to be honest, I expected a little more Rodgers magic, but he managed the game very well, controlled the flow of the game. The Green Bay Packers ran the ball, and when it came right down to it, they made that one defensive play on that pick in the end zone, an absolute thriller of a game and an absolute heartbreaker of a loss for Arizona. How do you take this? Do you see this as more as a big Green Bay win or a big Arizona defeat?
I think this is more of an Arizona leveling point. I think they've been riding high. I think they've been squeaking by, kind of like Baltimore had been for a few weeks. I think they finally met their level. They finally came back down to earth a little bit. They're playing over their ability. And like you said, we knew this was going to happen. We called it on our special episode that we put out last week. Even though Rodgers was missing like half of his offense, we still felt that Green Bay, coached by Matt LaFleur, who did a great job. He's been doing great so far. And Aaron Jones, great running back. They're just going to have enough firepower. And the defense played pretty well, I think, against a very powerful Arizona Cardinals offense.
Yeah, they did a great job making Kyler Murray not comfortable in the pocket or when he scrambled outside the pocket, forced it into a couple turnovers, obviously the big one at the end. You mentioned the coaching job LaFleur did. I think he was masterful in his game plan. You know, Arizona's a very aggressive team on first down defensively. They like to bring the blitz. According to Next Gen Stats, they have the second highest blitz rate in the league on first down. What Green Bay did is they used a lot of quick passes, a lot of quick screens, a lot of quick outs off play action to slot receivers and tight ends. I think they ran a few to Amari Rodgers and a few to Tunyon before he got hurt, and it worked masterfully. It slowed the game down. It put them ahead of the change. Arizona didn't really have a response the entire game. It was a masterful game plan by LaFleur. You know, there's all this conversation about Rodgers and the job he's done. Let's give it up for LaFleur's coaching job and that Green Bay red zone defense with making the plays they need to make to win games.
Yeah, and I think that's a big contributor to all of this. When they're down and out, all the receivers are hurt. The magic, a lot of defensive players were hurt or out as well. That's what a good coach does. He changes up the game plan, and that's what you do when you don't have all your weapons. Short plays, short slants, runs. I think it was a great game plan, executed very well, and I think we were less surprised than Rodgers was because you brought up Next Gen. This is Amazon Web Stats, AWS. This is their stat for Rodgers when he found out that they finally won. I believe this was the face that he made. He was a little bit surprised. He might have been, a little shaken up, but, they got it done. And, I say congrats to Green Bay. People have been questioning them all year. People have been rumor milling, is Rodgers going to leave? Is he going to stay? I think what's important now is they are a bona fide threat to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think this is the first step in the Arizona Cardinals, maybe, like you said, leveling off a little. I think they were riding a really hot streak. I think they still had a lot of momentum, but that heartbreaker of a pick in the end zone on that throw from Kyler Murray to AJ Green. They called it a miscommunication or whatever it ended up being. That's just a tough loss at home against a shorthanded Green Bay team. Great win by Green Bay. Tough loss for Arizona. Speaking of tough losses, we got to go to this Tennessee Titans Indianapolis Colts game. The Colts needed this game to keep up with Tennessee in that AFC South divisional race. They got the Titans at home. The Colts have been playing better. The Colts came out with a great game plan. They jumped up 14-0. They held Derrick Henry to less than 3 yards per carry, forced Tannehill into 2 interceptions, forced the Tennessee Titans to surrender 160 penalty yards, and still lost. How much of a heartbreaker is this a defeat for Indianapolis, and can they recover the rest of the season?
I think it's a big heartbreaker for Indianapolis. This was their best chance. Well, it's not their best chance anymore. They have a pretty good chance next time they meet. Now, for the unfortunate circumstances that Derrick Henry has met, getting the broken 5th metatarsal on his foot, potentially out for the rest of the season. His surgery was successful, though, so there's hope. People come back crazy fast nowadays. You never know. Maybe he'll be back for playoffs if they can squeak in. But I think for a team to come out so hot, so fast, and then slowly give the game back up, it's very difficult for them to do that. And I think it really hurts their morale. It hurts their mental. I think it's tough for a team to overcome those type of losses.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since they've been playing better. They beat San Francisco in San Francisco on Sunday Night Football not long ago. They obviously had a chance against Baltimore, blew that, and then they blew this game after the early lead. Wentz throws a pick 6 less than 2 minutes to go in the game and throws that crucial heartbreaker of an interception in overtime. Wentz had been playing better, but I think the reality is starting to set in that ever since he had that hot start to his career in Philadelphia, he's just a second-rate or even a third-rate quarterback. And I think Frank Reich's got to be frustrated. He joined the Colts thinking he had Andrew Luck and he had a franchise guy for the next decade, and he's just had nothing but instability at the quarterback position over his entire tenure ever since Luck surprisingly retired a couple years ago. I think it doesn't look good for Wentz. I don't think it looks good for the Colts. Unfortunately for the Titans, even though they got the win, it doesn't look good for them either. The injury to Derrick Henry, like you mentioned, he is such a huge part of that offense. Obviously, it's not just the running game, it's the play action off of it. We got the news that they brought in veteran Adrian Peterson to help fill that role in the backfield. They do have Mick Nichols, who's more of a third down running back. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Tannehill to try and do something with that offense. I just don't see it happening. I still think they win the division just because that division isn't very good, right? They have the Jaguars, they have the Texans, and obviously the Colts, like we mentioned. But I don't think the Titans are a contender in the AFC like they were probably feeling as they walked off the field Sunday after beating the Colts. Do you disagree, or do you think they still have a shot?
No, I think they kind of limped out of that game. I think the injury to Henry is huge. It's worse than losing a starting quarterback for them. They could have lost Tannehill and been much better off. Tannehill, even though he has some good weapons and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, he just isn't the player to take this team to where they need to go. Like you said, weak division. Do they win the division? Most likely. I think Carson Wentz has a pretty good chance the way that he plays to somehow break both of his ankles at the same time. But like you said, it's going to be tough going forward. They probably make in the playoffs, but I don't see them progressing after the first round now that this news is hit. Another huge injury happened as well that we can touch on in the same vein. Jameis Winston is now season-ending ligament injury in the knee. Huge blow to that Saints team. What are your thoughts on that?
So the one good thing with the Saints, right, is they were kind of going through a transitional phase at quarterback anyway. Drew Brees retired, obviously, at the end of last year. Taysom Hill was supposed to be their gadget guy. He got hurt. Winston was kind of brought in to kind of maybe bridge the gap or potentially grow into a franchise quarterback. He had been up and down all season to begin with, had some good games, had some bad games, hadn't been really productive. I think losing him isn't nearly as big a deal for the Saints as losing Henry is for the Titans. I think Sean Payton's done a heck of a job as a coach of the Saints. Watching the Saints play Tampa, they reminded me a lot of the Rams teams a few years ago with Jared Goff when they were winning a lot of games. just like the Rams had Todd Gurley, the Saints have Alvin Kamara. The Saints have a really good defense. They got Hayward on the front four. They got Lattimore as an all-pro DB on the back end. They got a really good game planner in Sean Peyton. I think it's going to be a lot of what Peyton can do to create points and create big plays through scheming and different offensive play calls and things like that. And it's going to be a lot of feeding Kamara, both in the running game and the passing game. I think the Saints are going to be fine. But I do think this limits their upside. I don't think they were a Super Bowl contender to begin with, but they're definitely not now. Now Trevor Simian's an interesting guy. He has a lot of NFL experience. He played a lot for Denver and had some success. He in fact beat Tom Brady coming into the game, relieving Winston. Do you think this is a flash in the pan for Simian, or do you think he can step it up and lead the Saints and surprise some people the rest of the year?
I don't think it's a flash in the pan. I'm actually a big Trevor Simian fan. I watched him a lot when he went to Northwestern. He was part of their two-prong quarterback attack, him and King Coulter. King Coulter was the more athlete of the bunch. Run the ball more. He would also throw, but Simian was the real passer. It was a very interesting offense that Pat Fitzgerald had there, and Simian was a huge part of it. I think he's a great passer. I don't think he's much of an athlete like Winston or Hill would be, but I think he's an asset to this team. But I think there's another key factor that people aren't thinking of. The Saints have now gotten back the lifeblood of that team, the heart and soul, and the beat that keeps on drumming. Mark Ingram is back with the Saints, and I think that the morale boost he brings to that team, as we saw in the party they had in the locker room after the big win against Tampa, I think that keeps them. They didn't look like a team who was devastated that they lost their starting quarterback. They look like a team that they are together, they're happy, and they're ready to move on from whatever comes their way. They could lose the whole team, and they're still going to fight. I think that they're going to be a threat moving forward, and the thought process that Winston is down, so the Saints are down, could be dangerous to other teams coming into games with them in the future.
Yeah, and I encourage everybody, whenever they get a chance, go on YouTube and look up this part. Actually, hold on. Go on YouTube, and before you look up this party, make sure you watch our videos and comment, subscribe, and all that. But definitely check out, after you do all that, definitely check out the locker room party that the Saints threw after beating Tampa. You had a good shot of Jameis Winston, on crutches, dancing around in some fog. What are the over/under on painkillers that he had going on, Jameis Winston, after tearing his ACL but still dancing in the locker room? What do you think? What do you think there?
Over the recommended dosage for sure. He was definitely living life. He couldn't feel anything. So good for them though. They deserved it. Another tight game happened this weekend. A thriller, so to speak. One that I called, and it just narrowly went away from my call. The Chiefs and the Giants had a battle in Arrowhead Stadium this weekend.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And kudos to you. You picked New York to win, and they came up just short. They had plenty of opportunities. Great job on you. I didn't see it. I saw this as kind of a Kansas City, kind of showing out a little bit in front of their home fans, prime time, beating a very beat up Giants team. But they didn't, right? The Giants went toe-to-toe with them and hung in there very, very well. And this was like I said, they're very hurt. They're obviously without Barkley. A lot of their weapons at receiver are hurt. Daniel Jones didn't have his best game, but he did good enough. I think the Chiefs are in real trouble. They weren't very efficient on offense. Mahomes threw another pick. They only scored 20 points, right? This was a Giants team that Dallas, another quality team, dropped 44 on a few weeks ago. Kansas City needed all four quarters just to get to 20. They pulled out a really close game. I think defensively, they gave up some big plays, and they could have given up more. The Giants just didn't have the weapons to score more. I think Kansas City has real issues.
And Mahomes, I believe he fumbled a few times as well. It was just an overall sloppy game. And to be honest with you, I never thought that I would say this, but we are at a point now where Mahomes looks bad. He looks like a liability every time he steps out on the field. I don't know what the issue is. He's got new offensive linemen who are good. He's got the offensive weapons. He's got like two great running backs. He's got great receivers. He's got the best tight end possibly of all time. I know their defense is horrible, but they should at least be able to put up points on offense. So he's going through some issues, and I don't know if he's going to figure them out this season, and I don't know what he needs to do to figure them out. I think he probably needs to take some time away from the commercial realm, maybe get his head on straight and figure it out. I think we'll get into this a little bit later in our top 5 segment, and there's some trends that have happened that I've seen that cause players lately to not perform up to their ability. But yeah, this has been very surprising. I never would have bet that Mahomes was a bottom tier quarterback in the league when he's been stepping on the field lately, that they're not even going to make it to the playoffs. They're not even close to making it to the playoffs currently. It's just very surprising.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it, watching the game, and I think the Manning brothers hit on it a little bit, is how easy for the first few years of his career, Mahomes and that offense had it. They were very explosive, very fast, and teams really weren't sure how to play them, and they obviously had a better offensive line. So they got a lot of man-on-man coverage and got to take advantage of a lot of great matchups like Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. Well, the Giants did a great job. They played a lot of soft zones and took away those deep passes and forced Mahomes to be patient and methodical and basically play like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Well, Mahomes hasn't had to do that for the majority of his career, and he just struggled like he's been struggling all season. Hopefully, for him and the Chiefs' sake, he catches a little bit more rhythm and understands how to, as Peyton Manning talked about, look long and then look short, touchdown, then check down. I think that's a big part of what he needs to process going forward. I do think this team has a chance, but I think Mahomes needs to take that next step in understanding that he no longer has just an offensive firepower advantage like he did the first few years in his career, and needs to focus more on, okay, manufacture first down, stay ahead of the chains. Because they can't just, for a few years there, it didn't matter the down and distance. They were just so explosive. But now it's harder for them. The offensive lineman has issues. The receivers aren't quite as good, or they're not quite as deep at receiver. And it's just, he hasn't been able to transition his game a little bit to better handle that. And right now they're tied for last in that division with the Denver Broncos. And I don't think many people saw that coming. And I think they're in real trouble unless Mahomes can turn it around.
Last point on this before we move on to the next thing, and it's the point that I can bring up because I know. What's the difference between this team this year and this team last year? I will pose the question to you. What's the difference in the Ravens' passing offense the last 2 weeks versus every other week this season? The 400-yard game that Lamar had. You know what that difference is? The lack of Sammy Watkins in the offense. Sammy Watkins is very valuable third down, check down receiver. He's very reliable hands. He's been good. The Saints have had Sammy Watkins the last few years. They decided to trade him away. This offense looks transformed. Is that the reason? Probably not the sole reason, but it could be a big contributor to this.
Well, it's, I talked about it a little bit. When you start paying all your players like they had to do with Mahomes, the depth, that that third tier group of guys, they don't have a chance to, you don't have a chance to keep them. So like you brought up with Watkins, they had to let Watkins go. And so they lost that element. And you're right. It's a good point. Maybe that has a sort of downstream effect, and that's really bottling up their offense.
Yeah, I think just maybe Watkins was he's like a second number 2 guy that was playing in the number 3 spot. So they had 2 number 2 guys out there and then a number 1 guy in Tyreek Hill. And that was really what made it easy for Mahomes. There's always a mismatch out there. There's always that target. And now when teams can lock you up, it's a lot harder for him. But moving on to a team I think in your corner of your eye, you've had a shine to this season. You like to talk about them a lot. But the San Francisco 49ers, I'll let you dig into this one, but they've been impressive as of late, getting healthier.
Yeah, they're getting healthier, and they beat up on Chicago. They won 33-22 with their running game and their passing game. Garoppolo threw for over 300. The running back Mitchell, who's only playing because of the injuries they've had at that position, ran for well over 100 yards. They beat Chicago in Chicago. I think the big takeaway there is Trent Williams, their all-pro, all-world, Pro Bowl left tackle, finally returned. Trent Williams was at the top of my list when we ranked our top 5 offensive linemen in the NFL at one of our earlier shows. He is absolutely a difference maker for that offense. The ability for him to use zone blocking and pulling, and by zone blocking, I mean he is able to take a gap to his left or his right, so whoever he's blocking in that gap, and move them and control them down, and it allows holes to open up that running backs like Elijah Mitchell can cut behind. and his pass blocking gives Garoppolo that extra beat or allows Garoppolo to step up and run. Garoppolo had 2 rushing touchdowns. Big day for Garoppolo, big day for that offense. We talked about the 49ers and, well, what's the missing piece? Is it Trey Lance? Is he going to come in and make a difference? Is it George Kittle getting healthy? It may be Trent Williams because they look like a contender against Chicago last weekend.
Absolutely. I think Trent Williams is a huge factor, and I think he's been a factor ever since he's gotten to the team. Like you said, he's back. They're better than ever. I think they get a little bit healthier in the running back department. I think they get a Kittle return to form possibly could help. And there's no way but up for them in a division that's completely up for grabs after a loss from Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of division up for grabs, we got to touch on that big rivalry game, Pittsburgh versus Cleveland over the weekend. I think this is such a disheartening defeat for Cleveland, falling 15-10 to Pittsburgh. I felt like after the losses they've had, some close losses Cleveland has had, specifically to the Chargers earlier on, I felt like they had kind of turned the corner with a gutsy win against the Broncos shorthanded, but they looked really bad against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh lost their kicker and they were forced to go for 2 multiple times. It kind of changed the flow of the game. It didn't matter. Cleveland couldn't execute. Plenty of drop passes, 2 by Jarvis Landry, who also fumbled at a critical juncture in the game. I think Cleveland is on everyone's hype list of a contending team, but every year, the past couple of years, they seem to disappoint. You think this is another disappointing year for Cleveland?
Yeah, I've called this from the beginning. I didn't pick this picture that I've put on the screen by accident. I think Cleveland's a joke. I think every year they come out, oh my God, did you see Cleveland? They have Odell Beckham Jr., they have Jarvis Landry. They have Austin Hooper. They have David Njoku. They have a top-tier offensive line now. They have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Myles Garrett's going to break the sack record. They've got a stout linebacking core, good DBs, good safeties. You're not fooling me. Their front office is one of the worst management front offices I have ever seen. They have zero reliability in their coaching staff and in all of their coordinators. It's a rotating, revolving door. Whoever they have now is not who will be there, I'd say, in the next 2 years because they're going to underperform. This is a Rams win now team. Do you think that if the LA Rams, with all of the pieces that they have in place right now, were performing like the Cleveland Browns, that they would even be allowing the coach to be the coach anymore? No, I think he'd be on his way out. It's just crazy to me that people don't see what I see. I see a team that has literally zero excuse to be as bad as they are, and still every year they constantly disappoint.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. One play from the game stuck out at me late in the fourth quarter. I think Mayfield, it was 3rd down. Mayfield scrambled and he took a hard kind of late-ish hit near the first down marker. He got the first down barely. He gets up, he's all fired up. He gets the crowd going. And it's a big play. It's a momentum play and all that kind of stuff. But as talented as Cleveland is, they shouldn't have to work that hard for first downs. As explosive as they're supposed to be offensively, you brought up Beckham, Landry, Njoku, those running backs. The offense should fly up and down the field. They shouldn't have any issues. They shouldn't have to have a hard run by their quarterback to get a 3rd and 5, against an average Pittsburgh team. But it's just what Cleveland is. They're always disappointing. I feel like they have a great Madden roster. They have a great roster where if you look at it on Madden, you're like, this is going to be a good team. I want to play with them. They're not a great real life roster. And I think that goes, and you hit on the front office, I think it goes to the coach and quarterback too. I think Baker Mayfield, we've given him a hard time. I think his struggles in execution play a big role. I think his struggles in managing the personalities, have also been an issue. Part of being quarterback isn't just making the right reads throwing the football. It's managing all the personalities in the huddle and in the locker room and keeping everyone involved and engaged and motivated to the same goal. And he's done a terrible job. I mean, there's a story that came out early this week about Odell Beckham's father posting on Instagram, why isn't Baker Mayfield throwing Odell the ball? Look at this picture. He's open, right? That's the kind of stuff that doesn't happen if you have a quarterback leading the team and leading the offense. Those kind of stories don't happen with Tom Brady. Those kind of stories don't happen with Aaron Rodgers. They didn't happen with Drew Brees or Peyton Manning. And we keep waiting for Cleveland to take that next step, and they just continue to not do it. They're a disappointing team because I think they have the talent to be good. And I think it'd be kind of nice to see what would happen in that division if you have all those, a really good Cleveland, a really good Pittsburgh, and really good Baltimore team. I think it'd be really, really fun, as a football fan. But Cleveland just continues to disappoint, especially in the biggest spotlights.
I think at this point in time, you could actually put prime Jerry Rice, prime Calvin Johnson, and prime Randy Moss out there, and they would still underperform. Like, they'd find a way to screw it up. So I don't know what else people want. Briefly, Pittsburgh, I mean, they beat a bad Browns team. What more do you expect? Divisional game, always going to be toss-up. Pittsburgh's not going anywhere. They're just embarrassingly weak on the offensive side of the ball. TJ Watt's the best player on their team, and they don't hand him the ball enough on offense, so they're probably not going to win.
Yeah, fair point. Speaking of offense and coming from surprising locations, how about those Jets? Unknown Mike White comes out of nowhere, was a 2018 fifth-round draft pick by Dallas, hasn't really played anything in the NFL, relieves the injured Zach Wilson against the heavily favored Cincinnati Bengals. All this man does is go out there, throw for 400-plus touchdowns, leads a double-digit fourth-quarter comeback, in the biggest passing yards debut, most passing yards in a starting quarterback's debut since Cam Newton in 2000, I think in 14 or 13. It's been almost 10 years. What a performance by the Jets, and what a letdown by the Bengals.
And I also think it was like the most passing yards by a Jets quarterback since like Vinny Testaverde or something like that in December. Am I right on that? Or
Yeah. It was the first time a Jets quarterback threw for 400 yards since Vinny Testaverde
on
was
Christmas. There. Christmas Day game of some sort.
Yeah, since the mid-1990s, since I was like 4 years old.
But yeah,
Zach
crazy.
Wilson wasn't even born yet. It's just absolutely bizarre. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Zach Wilson might not be the quarterback after this. This will be the start of my my conversation. We'll get a little bit into it, but the Trevor Simian, the Mike White, tons of backup quarterbacks came in this week, and they just played amazing. How can this guy come in and throw for 400 yards in his first game, and then we question, where's Zach Wilson been this season? There's obviously, okay, I'm not going to go ahead and say, let's jump the Zach Wilson ship. Let's take him out to harbor. But it's not the worst idea, because if you look at Arizona and Josh Rosen, they moved on from him pretty quick once they realized he wasn't the guy. And it turned out to work very well for them. So maybe if the Jets get a high enough pick, they consider it. But for this guy to step into the offense and immediately put up major yards against a good team, at the time, the best team in the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals. This team that came out and throttled my Baltimore Ravens. They come out and absolutely take it to the Bengals. No matter what, there's some controversy we'll talk about in a little bit, but no matter what, it was a close game, and that, it shouldn't have to come down to one call to win the game. If it's a good game, if one call makes the difference, they got to at least question, is Zach Wilson the guy after this?
Yeah, I think so, especially since Wilson, before he got hurt, was leading the league or tied in the league with interceptions. So he hadn't been taking care of the football. I don't think the Jets had scored a first quarter touchdown all season prior to this game, actually. They hadn't?
No, that's correct, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, big brain show. But, just what Mike White was able to do with an offense that Zach Wilson couldn't do anything with is staggering against the Cincinnati team that, like you said, people were very impressed with. I kind of wonder a little bit if it was sort of the Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't have film on Mike White. They didn't know how to play him. They didn't know what his strengths and weaknesses were. So there may be a little bit of that action there. But at a certain point, this is for no disrespect to Mike White, essentially a nobody in the greater context of NFL quarterback play. And he absolutely shredded them, coming from behind multiple times. I think the Bengals had double-digit leads at least twice, maybe even one other time, especially late in the fourth quarter. An absolutely heartbreaking loss for Cincinnati. And we'll go ahead and move to that penalty call there at the end of the game. And for those of you that didn't watch it, it was a third down situation. The Jets were up by 3. They throw a check down to the running back, and the Cincinnati defender comes up and tackles him. And the referees rule 15-yard unnecessary roughness essentially ends the game. The questionable penalty about that was it was helmet to helmet unnecessary roughness, but the running back lowered his head to initiate the contact. It was an absolutely questionable call, to say the least. Most of social media sphere and the NFL fandom was furious with the call, felt it took the ball out of the hands of the players and gave the Jets an easy route to a win. What are your thoughts on the call?
You can actually see right here in the picture, the defender's head is actually lower than the offensive player's head. That doesn't mean much, but you go back and watch the clip, he's going low for a good form tackle on the legs to grab and roll the gator roll tackle to get this running back down. And you watch the running back lower his head down to initiate that contact, like you said. It was in no way did I ever think, oh, this is going to be a penalty on the defense. I mean, like, maybe this is a no call because it's an offensive player that does helmet to helmet. But if anything, it's helmet to helmet on the offense, and it should knock the Jets back a couple of yards. It's a crazy call. There's a lot of crazy calls this weekend. The officiating has really gotten quite questionable, and I think that's something to talk about at a later date, possibly. But nonetheless, this Jets team shouldn't be beating you on one finicky call. Like this isn't the team. If this was last week's game, if this was Baltimore Cincy and this was the play, that it would be like the story. It would be like, wow, terrible call. Cincy should never won that game. You know, Joe Mixon clearly lowered his head. But this is the Jets we're talking about. This is a team that had won one game up to this point. So I tend to say go Jets. Not because there's AFC North bias, of course. That would be very apropos of me, but I say go Jets. I think that they earned the win, and I think the call doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bigger thing to me is if you're going to be a good team like Cincinnati, kind of talk like they were, and maybe they were feeling themselves a little bit. You got to beat the bad teams, and the Jets are a bad team with their backup quarterback. You got to take care of business. However, you got to get a win, get the win, and they didn't do it. And I think Cincinnati, this could be a big blow for that team and that team's psyche going forward.
Moving on, I think through these next few, we got the Falcons versus the Panthers. Two middle of the road teams, middle of the road matchup. Middle of the road quarterback play by both quarterbacks. But Panthers ended up taking the win. And what are your thoughts on this one?
So Matt Ryan disappointed me through 2 picks, less than 150 yards against a decent but not great Panthers defense. They haven't gotten Gilmore is not playing a whole lot yet. He played a little bit in this game. I think this is just disappointment from Atlanta. I think there was talk before the game. Calvin Ridley stepped aside for personal reasons. He didn't play in this game. He's out indefinitely, taking some personal time there. He's got some personal time banked up. He doesn't want to lose it. Understand that happens to all of us who work
holiday
at our jobs.
Season, so
it's holiday season. He's got errands to run. He's got chores to do, doctor's appointment. So I get it. Happens. You got personal time. It's use or lose. Might as well use it. But disappointing for Atlanta. Good win for Carolina. Like you said, middle of the road matchup. We'll see if it has any impact to any real playoff moves towards the end of the season. But speaking of big playoff moves, I think the big story heading into the trade deadline this week, it begins and ends with Von Miller, outside linebacker, defensive end for the Denver Broncos, or should I say formerly of the Denver Broncos. He's now a Los Angeles Ram. The Rams have traded a 2nd and 3rd round pick for Miller to join that defense headlined by Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd in the front 7 and Jalen Ramsey on the back end. How big of a move is this for that Rams defense?
I think it's big, but I'm gonna turn the tables on you, Nick. I have a list of moves that were relatively big this week, and I'm gonna go down the list, and I want you to answer, big move or no, doesn't matter. Tell me your thoughts on these. So obviously, first we start Von Miller to the Rams. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I don't like it. So the big reason is their weakness was not front 7. I brought up Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd. I gave a little teaser there. their weakness wasn't front seven. It wasn't defense. Frankly, it's really depth at offense. They have, they have some injury issues on the offensive line. They're basically Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods at receiver and not much else. They just cut Deshaun Jackson. I don't think they're great at running back with Henderson. I think they needed offensive depth if they're going to make any moves. I think this is a more flashier move than anything else. I really don't like the move. I don't know what value it adds.
Next, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers send Melvin Ingram to the Kansas City Chiefs.
So this would have been a great move 6 years ago when Ingram played for the Chargers. This is a nothing move now. Ingram has one sack, one in the last 13 games he's played in. I think I applaud Kansas City a little bit. At least they have enough self-awareness to know their defense is garbage, and they want to make a move to try and improve that defense however they can. But Ingram, he's a middle-of-the-road pass rusher in his 30s at best right now. He's an okay against the run. I guess it's a move. It's something. Doesn't really wow me. They've got bigger issues on defense than that. I guess it's something's better than nothing, but it's
an interesting move for Ingram to come in and replace Daniel Sorensen as safety. I thought they thought nothing could be worse than this, so they move Ingram to safety and just try it out. They got the best player that they could think of. Like, let's put him in safety. Maybe he won't get burned every time he's on the field.
Just anything to get Sorensen off the field, right? Just get that liability off the field.
This one is possibility I actually haven't heard. So this is a thought thought-provoking question right here. Washington and the Bills have been talking about Trubisky possibly moving to Washington. It has not been confirmed or denied, and I don't even know if it's going to happen. But just real quick, what do you think? Do you think that could be good, or is it not the move?
I don't really know. I mean, Washington, if they make a move for Trubisky, they're basically saying we think Trubisky has a chance to be our long-term starter, and maybe he does. He obviously wasn't that in Chicago, and he's a backup in Buffalo now. Maybe they obviously don't think Heineke's their guy long-term. Fitzpatrick was a starter before he got hurt. He's certainly not long-term. I wouldn't like them to do that. If you're Washington, you just kind of play out the season, see how it goes, and then get a quarterback in free agency or draft one. I don't really like the move.
We started filming today right before trade deadline. I hadn't heard anything, and I think exactly what you said. All this does is reiterate that you feel like Heinicke isn't your long-term guy, so you're just looking for somebody else. Next moves, the Rams have cut Deshaun Jackson as well as the Green Bay Packers have released Jalen Smith. What do these moves say?
The Jackson one's interesting because he had a couple of big catches for the Rams. I just think Jackson wanted to get cut. I don't think he felt he was used as much as he wanted to be used. And I don't think he was being paid a lot relatively. I think he was being paid the veteran league minimum. So when you get to a certain number of years in the NFL, you have your baseline minimum salary goes up. He's been in the NFL a long time, so his base minimum is pretty low, and I think that's what he was getting paid in LA. And he just wasn't getting the opportunities that he wanted to play, so he asked for trade, and then when he didn't get it, I think he asked to get cut, so he's going to try and pursue other opportunities. Jalen Smith, former Dallas linebacker, former second-round pick for Dallas. I understand why Green Bay picked him up after Dallas cut him a few weeks ago because he looks the part. He's big, strong, he's fast. He's just not a good football player. He had one good year a few years ago, I think in 2018. Yeah, 2018. Made a Pro Bowl and was a quality player, but it was sort of just the stars aligned. Look, the guy isn't a great tackler in space. He's not great coverage. He doesn't really do anything particularly well. He's a great emotional leader guy. He's a good story. He got hurt. He's going to be a top 10 pick coming out of college and got a serious injury. Battled through that, took a year or two before he could even play significantly in the NFL. I like his story, but the fact of the matter is he just isn't good enough to play. Green Bay took a flyer on him, and I understand why. And I think he's going to get another chance somewhere, and I wish him nothing but the best. But I just don't think he's a good football player right now.
And quickly, we've already talked about this one kind of. Do you think Adrian Peterson brings anything to the Titans?
It's just give him 5 carries a game, 5 carries, 15, 18 yards. And really, it's because their current running back is a third down guy, smaller scat back kind of guy. So maybe a short yardage guy, Adrian Peterson can be, or, goal line kind of deal, just to kind of do it by committee a little bit at that position for Tennessee. But really, this is just grasping at straws. They wanted a veteran who was ready to play, and they knew Adrian Peterson would bring something. I don't think he's going to do anything really remarkable, but it's more just they have to do something. They got to get somebody in the building, and Peterson is just the guy they went with.
Yeah, they're unfortunate that Baltimore has already taken every veteran running back on
Yeah.
the entire market. But so moving on to our next story, the New Orleans defense has knocked out Tom Brady. Brady 3 big turnovers, one huge one at the end of the game. What are your thoughts on this Saints team? Are they the real deal?
So the Saints, I kind of hit on it earlier, are very, very interesting. They play really good defense. They got a heck of a running back and overall offensive weapon in Kamara. They've got a good coach in Peyton, and I think they got a pretty good organization in front office. They intercepted Brady twice. They intercepted Rodgers twice. That's two of the top four quarterbacks in the NFL that they've beaten them by making big plays on defense. I don't think they're an elite contender, however, just because of the quarterback position. As good as they've been on defense, as good a weapon as Kamara is, do you really trust Trevor Simian to beat Brady, Rodgers, or heck, even guys like Dak Prescott or Matt Stafford? I really don't. And I think as good as Sean Payton is at game planning and scheming, I don't think he can overcome that deficiencies at the quarterback position. I think it's a great story. I think they're a contender to make the playoffs. I don't see them making deep moves. Do you disagree, or do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I kind of agree. They're a dangerous regular season team. They have not much value in the postseason. Interesting fact I heard: since Hill was out, Winston went out. Simian was in. I heard their backup quarterback, if Simian was to go down, was Alvin Kamara. So it's nice you call him what he is. He's an offensive weapon. So he would have been their backup quarterback if it would have all gone to crap. But real quick, we can touch on this. New England has kept rolling. They have beaten the Chargers. The Chargers are reeling 2 straight losses. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is just a disappointing turnaround for the Chargers. They looked really good through about 3-4 weeks, and then they got absolutely slobber knocked by Baltimore. Then they go into the bye, and then they get New England at home. And we got to say New England at home because the Chargers have the worst home field advantage in the NFL. Every time they have a home game, I feel like the opposing teams make more noise and have more effect than the home Charger fans do. That's got to be really embarrassing for that organization. But even what's more embarrassing is how good Herbert looked through 4 games. He's looked really, really bad these last couple. Lots of turnovers. He's not taking care of the ball. He's not making the big plays that he was making earlier on in the year. The Chargers are in that brutal AFC West and a really packed AFC. Honestly, I don't trust them anymore. Herbert is still an uber talent. There's no doubt about that. But I just don't think this team has enough of that leadership and sort of ability to overcome challenging and off games and finding ways to win tough games against good opponents. Their 3 losses are to 3 solid teams: Dallas, Baltimore, and now New England. I don't see them as a threat in the AFC anymore.
Here's my quick elevator pitch. LA Chargers, terrible attendance, terrible fans at home. St. Louis, Missouri has a team that had left, and they have what I would consider a pretty strong fan base at the time back in the day. Why don't we appease everybody? The NFL lets the LA Chargers move back to St. Louis, and they can be the St. Louis Chargers, and we just swap LA-based teams. I think it works out for everybody.
I think that's a great idea. I don't think it'll happen just because there's so much money involved. And, as much as the Chargers fan base stinks, they still make a lot of money just by being in LA and being in that media market. But I would like that. I like that for St. Louis. I think they're a great fan base. The St. Louis Rams and in that dome was always really cool. That was where the greatest show on turf was. It was a very exciting teams and very exciting environment to watch games in. And I root for it to happen. I just don't think it will. But we can always root and hope for NFL owners to maybe be a little less selfish.
I now have the toughest question for you, though. The 2 worst teams in the NFL right now, inarguably, Jaguars and the Lions. They both got blown out by losing teams. The question that I believe you have posed, but I now pose to you. Who do you rather root for? The Jags, who's got Urban Meyer partying on the road, grabbing girls, living his best life, or the Lions, who MCDC is out here, putting his heart and soul on the line, saying everything that you could possibly think of. uh, to motivate the team. And I think 7 in a row was the limit. They're finally just have gave up all hope, and they're starting to get blown out.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Jacksonville. And it's not because of Urban Meyer. It's because at least you have you brought up the keyword hope. You've got Trevor Lawrence, the golden boy, right? The franchise, hoping he can develop into a star and an elite level quarterback. And he certainly has the talent to do so. So I think Jacksonville can hang their hat on that. You hit on it. We had talked about it at one of our previous shows. When are the Detroit Lions players going to give up on Dan Campbell? They fight hard every week. When are they going to give up? Well, we saw exactly when they're going to give up. And it was this past Sunday. They got absolutely trundled at home by a bad Philadelphia team. Jared Goff, I'd almost bench him at this point. He threw the ball away on a fourth down in the middle of the game. He's whether his heart's in it or not, he's not playing well. Let's just get someone else in there. Even if it's a 7th round draft pick rookie, just throw someone else in there and just try and generate some buzz, some excitement. I really like what Dan Campbell does. I really like his energy and his accountability that he shows publicly. I think it's good leadership, but I just think there isn't a lot of hope in Detroit. They have nothing to hang their hat on. At least Jacksonville can say, hey, we've got a young rookie who might be something someday. Detroit doesn't have anything.
Yeah, I can't root for the Lions after the blowout. And like you said, we've reached the breaking point, 8 games. That's where you draw the line. All hope is gone. But another tough question. How does Dak Prescott feel sitting from the sideline watching the next golden boy, Cooper Rush, come in for Dallas and win against not a terrible but not a good Vikings team?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Not a good, but not a terrible Minnesota team. This is a tough loss for Minnesota. They get Dallas at home without Prescott. This was going to be a tough game for them anyway, but without Prescott, they were probably thinking, all right, we got to win, big win for us, get above 500. And they just didn't get it done. And Cooper Rush, to his credit, came out and played well enough to win, made the plays at the end of the game, was bailed out a little bit by Elliott and Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on a few occasions, but he won the game and kudos to him and great job. I think the happiest person for Cooper Rush, aside from probably his dad and family who can't believe what they saw, is going to be Cooper Rush's agent, because Cooper Rush's agent probably thought he was going to be representing a career backup in the NFL. And I think after this game, he may get a few calls in the offseason to maybe compete for a starting job. And instead of making $500K, he may have a chance to make $5 or $6 million, which I'm sure the agent will really, really appreciate. But to answer your question about Dak, I think he still feels pretty good. I mean, he knows Jerry loves him. He just got paid 160 or however many $1 million to be the Cowboys starting quarterback for a little while. So I don't think he's too worried about it. And I think he's probably happy for Cooper and happy that Cooper's going to probably get a big payday in the offseason.
And we have a picture of Cooper's dad and family. I think that was the best part of the game, watching his dad's expressions throughout the entire game. Such a, he's probably been waiting his entire NFL career, coming to games. His son never actually gets to go in. Finally, he gets to go in, the biggest moment of his son in his life, probably. And what does his son do? Like you told me a few days ago when we were watching the game together, we were talking about it. You said, I'm happy as long as it's close. I don't expect us to win. They probably don't expect to win. But he comes out, he does his thing, and they end up winning the game. I mean, it's incredible, and I feel like you said, he's going to get a chance. He's going to get paid, and I think he wholeheartedly took advantage of an opportunity that was set in front of him, and I think he's going to be greatly rewarded for that.
Yeah, and I think you talked on his dad. I love the emotions of the family because it definitely was just like the most disbelief. Like they couldn't believe it. Like it was some kind of Hollywood fairy tale they were living, and they were all jumping and hugging each other and laughing, and just the awe on their faces. Because obviously Cooper Rush, he was an undrafted free agent, I believe, out of Central Michigan. He hadn't started an NFL game in 6-7 years since he was in college. He's only thrown 3 NFL passes, career backup guy, and he just goes out and has a great day in terms of winning the game and making plays at the end. Just what a moment for that family. That's something they'll all treasure, and it's stuff like that makes football really great. That's pretty awesome to see. Unless, of course, you're in the state of Minnesota, in which case you feel sick right now after that performance.
Terrible. Not as terrible as the Las Vegas Raiders. News is broken. Las Vegas Raiders first-round pick Henry Ruggs has been involved in a fiery car crash in Las Vegas this weekend. It was reported one person has unfortunately passed away as a result of the crash, and Ruggs has been charged with a DUI resulting in death, and I fear this is the end of Henry Ruggs' NFL career.
Yeah, it probably is. Obviously, he's going to have serious criminal issues with this incident. It's a tough situation for the Raiders organization that has had more than enough tough situations this season. Ruggs had finally started to come around and be that explosive playmaker. They were looking to provide Derek Carr in that offense and kind of complement Darren Waller a little bit. They're all pro tight end, and now he's going to be out of the picture. It's tough because they actually, by not playing this week, found themselves first place in their division. And as only the Raiders can do, even when things are going well for them, they find a way to screw it up somehow. Tough moment for the Raiders. Obviously, tough moment for Henry Ruggs, and what, like you said, will probably be the end of his career and whatever penalties he has to face criminally. And it's going to be a battle for Derek Carr and that team to try and to keep their head on straight and keep moving forward and trying to execute. But it's going to be tough. I don't think they're able to overcome this, and I think this is pairing this with the Gruden incident. I think this is about to turn their season for the worst.
2 points, and just like you said, first point being, I believe this is the final nail in the coffin of the Las Vegas Raiders season. They had some hope, they had some passion coming in. They were able to rally around a former South Carolina coach and be able to pull out some wins. But I think this, piled with the Gruden incident, piled with everything else that's happened this year, final nail in the coffin. I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to overcome this one. And secondly, you are a first-round draft pick in the NFL. You've been paid millions and millions of dollars. Call a freaking Uber, get a driver. It's actually disgusting that you would get drunk and go drive however fast you had to be driving to crash into a car. You can see the car actually caught on fire and burned. Like, it's actually despicable. I hope you never play in the NFL again, because how do you not have a driver or call an Uber? It's literally crazy to me that you're getting paid tens of millions of dollars to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, and you can't make better decisions. You don't deserve to get paid this kind of money. You don't deserve to get paid by anyone in the NFL anymore. So, show your true colors. If you can't handle it, then get out.
Yeah, just two quick more points on that. So the NFL, they started this a little while ago. They actually have a ride service that they offer to players. They can call 24 hours a day, wherever they are, and a person will come pick them up. It's obviously only in the NFL cities, but that they opt for that specific reason because they're trying to protect the image and things like that. And second of all, it just goes to show, when you give, 22, 23-year-olds millions of dollars and total freedom in a city, you've got, like I always say, everyone's an idiot until you're 25. And even in this case, an even bigger idiot in Ruggs, bad things happen. So it's unfortunate, but it is the reality of a sport and organization that hands, relatively immature 22-year-olds millions and millions of dollars. Like you said, it's a bad incident and a bad look for the league. No doubt about that. Speaking of bad looks for the league, Sports Illustrated released a few days ago that Roger Goodell was compensated by the NFL and by extension the owners $128 million over the last 2 seasons. Based on that dollar amount, I think it's fair to say that Roger Goodell definitely will never release any of the emails related to the Washington Redskins and their allegations over the past few weeks.
I mean, I wouldn't if you paid me $128 million. I would say that it was confidential, and there's some medical records in there in those emails, and it was HIPAA violation, and we just couldn't discern what was and what wasn't being able to send. So we found it. This is the reason. This is the reason they probably paid him, and the reason they're not releasing them is because there clearly was something in there, but he gets paid a good enough chunk of change to hide it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how many people would be in that and agree with that. And I honestly, I may be one of those, but to cover up some stuff like that just to get a check of $75 million or this year and 128 million total over the last 2 years. It's tough. And I think it shines a light into how pro football works a little bit. And that's kind of frustrating because there's so many good things about the league and so many things about the game. But to hear that, so much of the compensation is tied, directly to things that probably aren't on the up and up is very frustrating, at least to me. But I can be a little bit of a purist and an idealist when it comes to stuff like that.
But what's even more frustrating is when we, as a group, are trying to put on nothing but a top-notch program here at Saturday Morning Inspection. And we try to help out our lesser counterparts, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning of Omaha Productions. We give them critiques on the Manning cast. Maybe they can learn from their mistakes. Maybe they can watch a superior show like ours and learn a little bit. But much like across the country has been happening, they try to breach the security of our show. Omaha Productions tried to hack our program and infiltrate us, but as the calm, cool, collected broadcasters we were, it did not affect us. We kept on the program like we didn't even skip a beat, and I will show the footage of when this happened now, and we'll get back with you just a second. I've took down some notes of the general broadcast, not the football aspect of it, but the broadcasting aspect of it. Oh, give me 1 second. I had something popped up in my ear. I'm sure everyone's able to hear it. But on the broadcast of the Manning cast, Nick, as you can see, they tried to put whatever video clip into our show, play some weird audio cues, get us mixed up, messed up. But it doesn't work. They should know we're better than that. It's not going to affect us. We're going to figure out the problem on the fly, fix it, and move on. We're too professional for that, and they should just really have known better than to try a lowball tactic like that on us.
Yeah, I really don't appreciate, like you said, those lowball tactics from Omaha Production and the Manning brothers. I think this shines a light on the classy, or lack thereof, the classless nature of that Manning family. And I think it starts at the top. I'm looking at you, Archie. This is a call out to you. Get on your sons and get on your grandson, Arch. I don't want to see him be this way either, trying to take down and mess with high quality, elite level programming like we have here at Saturday Morning Inspection. This is your warning. If you keep coming at us, hey, we're going to come right back at you.
And we fire back hard. But on to our next segment. We have our worst to first segment. And this week we are doing the division leaders of the NFC. All right. I'll go first, Nick, if you don't mind, and then I'll let you go first in the next segment. And I'm gonna go through these quick because I think we've already talked about all these teams more or less. But my worst to first, starting at the bottom, may surprise some people. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just had a tough loss to the New Orleans Saints. I think they're struggling defensively some. I think on offense, they have games where they seem unstoppable, but somehow when they face a few defenses that match up to them somehow, some way, I don't know how people match up with that offense, they can get slowed down. There is a weakness. There are chinks in the armor, and they are the one team, really, out of this group that has consistently showed chinks in the armor throughout the season. Very first game against Dallas, they almost lost. They've lost a few other games, but to me, they look like the weakest group of the bunch. In third place, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. It's pretty close between third and second to me with them. I think they look very, very strong. I think they looked very, very strong this past week, and Dak wasn't even in. I think they have a great offense. I think they're very, very, very playing very well defensively. For who they have and what they've been working with, they really look like they've turned the corner. They've had defensive woes the past few years, but they've really, really made some strong draft choices, and I think it's helped them out tremendously. In my number 2 spot, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I know there's technically a tie between them and the Chargers. I find them the superior team over the Chargers, and I think they add Von Miller. if he has any juice left in the tank, maybe he adds on a little bit more pressure in the pass rush. It's not going to hurt the team. If they want to trade away all their draft capital to put players on to try to win a Super Bowl now, go ahead. But this is such a strong defense. It's such a strong offense. It really, really comes down to why they're not number one is there are so many pieces that haven't played together for so long that I don't think they mesh quite as well as my number one team, who is the Green Bay Packers. I think LaFleur, Rodgers, Devontae Adams, a pretty decent O-line, Aaron Jones, and a defense that has been doing nothing but improving every week. They beat at the time the best team in the NFL without like half of their starters. They look to me to be the most dangerous team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, that's a good list, Mize, and I've got a lot of agreement with you on a number of these, but I'll go ahead and get cracking through mine. For me, my number 4 is Dallas. I was going 3-4 between Dallas, Tampa Bay, where to rank them, and frankly, Tampa beat Dallas. So even though Tampa has 2 losses, I gave them the slight edge. Dallas number 4 strictly because their defense is better, but I still think they have some holes. I think offensively they're very explosive and very talented. But I when it comes to, I look a lot at quarterback play, and I think Prescott, while he's had a great year, falls a little short at some of the other guys on this list. And again, I don't necessarily trust that defense 100% against elite competition. And, like I said, number 3 for me, that's Tampa. And that just is, they were really high up there, probably number 1, lost to New Orleans, obviously set them back. But I still think this is an elite contender to win the Super Bowl at the end of the year. They're very, very deep. The one issue is that they are beat up in the secondary. Teams will be able to throw on them. We saw the Rams do that a couple weeks ago when Tampa played the Rams in LA. But I think they'll figure it out as the year goes on. Again, Brady late in the season, Brady in the playoffs. That is a tough situation. Number 2 for me, I'm going the Rams. I think, like you said, they're a tie with Arizona, but I think they're the far superior team. I think they have no holes on defense. I don't think they needed Von Miller. They had a disruptor in Aaron Donald. They had a good outside linebacker, pass rusher in Leonard Floyd, shut down corner in Jalen Ramsey. They got enough positions on defense. Offensively, what can you say? Cooper Kupp is setting a record pace at wide receiver. They've got a good enough offensive line and a solid running back core. I would have liked them to maybe pick up some depth at those position groups if they did anything during the trade deadline. But nonetheless, they look like a really contender. McVay's done a great job again with that team. They're the number 2 team in the NFC. And then number 1, just like you, I'm going Green Bay Packers. I had questions about their roster going into the season. They showed their depth against Arizona. Like you said, they're missing a lot of guys, and they came out and won that game. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones took over that game with that offensive line, who, by the way, are still missing their all-pro left tackle, David Bakhtiari, and they still physically beat up a quality Arizona defense in Arizona. And that defense of Green Bay, their ability to make plays in the red zone, I think obviously won them the game against Arizona with that late pick. They made plays in the red zone against Washington the week before. They're starting to feel their groove a little bit. And then you always have number 12 and Aaron Rodgers. He'll always find a way to get you a few wins in the playoffs. I think this Green Bay team is a real threat. And if they keep this streak up, they'll have home field advantage in the playoffs. And I tell you what, going to Lambeau Field in January time, when it's time to win a big playoff game, that is a tough place to win a game. And I think they're going to be in a good situation the rest of the year.
Before we move on to our next segment, which I think is an incredibly good segment we have coming up, our top 5, you saying Cooper Kupp and the statistic about him makes me remember this. And I'd be remiss if I did not at least mention this very briefly before we moved on. Another receiver having one heck of a season this year, Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers. He has surpassed Jerry Rice's record with the 49ers for most receiving yards through 8 games. He is on pace to possibly set a receiving yardage record from a guy who on that team he was a number 1-ish guy. Brandon Ayuk was also there, but I think that he deserves some respect, so that's why I thought I should mention his name.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing, you brought up Deebo Samuel. He's had a great year. What Deebo Samuel has been this year is what everybody on this next segment has not been. So we're talking our top 5 segment this week, and it's our top 5 disappointments halfway through the NFL season. So, Mize, you went first last segment. I'll go ahead and go first this one. So I'll get us going. My number 5, and that's quarterback from Miami. That's Tua Tagovailoa, which I'm sure I mispronounced that name. This was supposed to be their guy. They tanked for him. He got hurt his senior year at Alabama. Still was able to. Miami was still able to draft him because of it. Didn't have a great rookie year, up and down with Fitzpatrick taking playing time. This year, Fitzpatrick's gone, supposed to be his year. They draft former Alabama wide receiver Jalen Waddle to bring in and give Tua a weapon. Doesn't make a difference. Tua still struggles. He gets hurt. He misses a few games. Look, he threw 2 picks in a tough loss in Atlanta and one of their more winnable games. They just got beat up by Buffalo. They only scored 11 in that game. This offense isn't very good. This team isn't very good. They only have 1 win, and I think Tua has been really disappointing so far in his NFL career. The word bust is slowly starting to be whispered around Tua. It's not there yet, but it's coming. Number 4 is Matt Nagy, head coach for the Chicago Bears. Look, what can you say about a guy whose quarterback is a lot better when Matt Nagy isn't coaching him? Matt Nagy obviously missed this weekend's game against San Francisco due to COVID protocols, and Justin Fields, not coincidentally, had his best game of his young career at this point. Nagy ruined Trubisky, struggled with Nick Foles, and had issues with Justin Fields. This guy's been a big disappointment ever since his first year with Chicago. I think he's on the hot seat. We've hit on it a bunch. He's been a disappointment. Number 3, running back for the New York Giants, at Saquon Barkley. This number 2 former overall pick's big issue is consistency and injuries. The guy is a home run hitter when he's healthy, but half the time he can't even play because he's had all these injuries, major injuries, nagging injuries. He just hasn't been able to be healthy. One of my favorite sayings is the best ability is availability, and he hasn't been available. And, even when he has played this year, looking at the stats, he averaged less than 50 yards per game and less than 4 yards per carry. Coming out of Penn State, he was viewed as a generational type player. He is definitely heading right towards bust category right now. Speaking of bust, looking at Urban Meyer as my number 2 disappointment. 1 win this season. It wasn't even in the continental United States. In fact, the Jacksonville Jaguars, fun stat for you, have gone 417 days since winning a game in the United States of America. That is a wild statistic, and Urban Meyer is not doing anything to help that out at all. They just got dominated by a Seattle team, again, without Russell Wilson. Trevor Lawrence he showed some signs, but he struggled. Is Urban Meyer hurting Trevor Lawrence? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to tell at this point, but he certainly isn't helping them. He obviously had the off the field issues. No one was expecting Jacksonville to be great, but they're probably expecting a little more out of Urban Meyer than this. He's my number 2 disappointment. Number 1, safety for Seattle. This is Jamal Adams. Look, last year, Seattle gave up a few picks midseason to take Jamal Adams from the New York Jets. I think they gave up a number 1 pick and bring him into the fold. He made a big impact right away. He was going to be a franchise safety, a big turnaround, a big linchpin of that defense, and he has done squat. Going into last weekend's game against Jacksonville, he was zeros on the stats, 0 interceptions, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, 0 fumble recoveries. This guy is supposed to be a playmaker, and he isn't making any plays. Talk about not living up to his contract. The guy isn't even doing anything. He's been a liability in coverage. He's been liability in the run game. The Seattle defense is ranked very close to bottom in almost all major defensive categories. Everyone talks about their issues with Russell Wilson getting hurt. A big part of the problem has been their defense, and a big reason why has been Jamal Adams. There's been all this talk about Adams being an all-pro guy, an Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor kind of hybrid, and he has just stunk. He needs to step up his game if the Seahawks have any chance to turn their season around, because he has been really bad the first half of the season. I've been totally disappointed in his performance. He's my number 1 guy in terms of being disappointed in the first half of the NFL season. My honorable mention, I got to go a little different here. I'm going to go an entire division. I'm going to go the NFC West. They obviously have good teams, and the Rams and the Cardinals are obviously at the top, each with 1 loss. And San Francisco is not bad. I just think it's just been disappointing because we all kind of expected these 4 juggernaut teams, maybe 4 top contenders in one division. And with the injuries with Seattle, the injuries that San Francisco has had to play through, they just division hasn't lived up to the hype. Even the Rams have obviously now had an ugly loss. The Cardinals have had an ugly loss. I think at a certain point, this division is still elite and they still have some great contenders. I just think we were kind of hoping for this all-time great division this year, maybe a division with 4 teams, potentially making the playoffs because there's 3 wild cards now. It's not looking that way now. So my honorable mention disappointment is the NFC West.
And I think what you described is exactly what we were looking for. Disappointing. It was just disappointing. But like you said, four playoff teams. That's obviously the AFC North. There's currently 3 teams that have made the playoffs. Go figure. But my list is very different from yours, by design almost. But different people see different things as disappointing. Some of these are more personal to me than others. But I'm going to get us off started. Number 5 on my list is Baltimore Ravens left tackle Ronnie Stanley. And there's a theme on this list. Ronnie Stanley, 2 years ago, got paid a mega $100 million contract. Since then, he has played 2 games. He got hurt in 2020, the broken ankle. He was able to make it back for 1 game this season, and then somehow re-aggravated the injury and is now out for the rest of the season again. And I don't know what else you could say about something like that. Then it's extremely disappointing. It makes me even wonder. I know he's a phenomenal player. I know when he's on the field, he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. But we've been doing okay without him. We had to pay him the world, and he can't stay healthy enough. I know they're freak accidents, the broken ankle. No one could expect something like that. But it's been extremely disappointing that ever since he's gotten paid, he has underperformed. Number 4 on my list, Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers. Also got paid a huge, huge mega contract. He's been expected to put the team on his back, but since he was paid in 2019, he has also been constantly injured. This year, he is out for the season. The last few years, he's been banged up, missed 2 or 3 games here, 2 or 3 games there. He has constantly underperformed. He has not been able to carry this team anywhere. And if he's going to get paid like he's the guy, he's almost getting paid like he's the quarterback on that team, he has not performed up to the standard that has been expected from him. My number 3 disappointment on this list is a coach, Mike Zimmer for the Minnesota Vikings. Mike Zimmer has a high-powered offense. At one point in time, he had Kirk Cousins, he had Adam Thielen, he had Stephon Diggs, and he had Kyle Rudolph. All pretty high-level players. He decided to get rid of Rudolph, which I'm okay with. He decided to keep Thielen and let go of Diggs. Diggs has vastly outperformed Thielen, so I think it's a questionable decision on the choice there. But mainly I'm getting at, Mike Zimmer has been heralded as a defensive genius. And he has one of the absolute worst 29th ranked rush defenses in the NFL right now. They've been absolutely exposed on defense through running attacks. And I think for you to be this defensive genius head coach, I don't understand how your strongest strength, you're one of the worst in the league at currently. And that's just unacceptable and disappointing to me. My number 2 pick brings me much joy to say that it is none other than Baker Mayfield, a former first-round number 1 overall pick. 2 superstar running backs in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. 2 superstar number 1, bona fide number 1 caliber receivers in Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. 2 superstar tight ends in Austin Hooper and David Njoku. A very strong offensive line that has been retooled this season. An incredible defense. I've said this before this episode. Incredible defense. Where you have Myles Garrett about to set a record of sacks in the NFL. Yet he has underperformed every season. And it is a team, like I said earlier, like the Los Angeles Rams. But the Rams needed a quarterback to succeed. The reason the Browns are not succeeding, the sticking point, is the quarterback. When you build a computer or you use technology, there's a thing that people talk about as a bottleneck. It's the weakest part of the machine that you have built, and it's what's holding it back. The bottleneck of this Browns team is Baker Mayfield. And before they need to get rid of him and move on if they want to get any form of success. But I digress. This is just number 2. Number 1 on my list is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes went to 2 straight Super Bowls, won 1. Since then, he has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. They have just barely over 500 record this season so far. He is the leader in turnovers. He's number 1 in interceptions, very high in fumbles, number 1 overall in turnovers this season. The offense has looked embarrassing. The defense is actually the worst defense in the NFL. The only thing that could happen, you send Mike Zimmer over to Kansas City, and maybe they finally get like the worst team that they could possibly have. But Patrick Mahomes, like Ronnie Stanley, like Christian McCaffrey, gets paid a record-setting largest contract ever for any player and underperforms. What is the trend here lately with players getting paid mega contracts, record-setting contracts at their position, and then constantly underperforming? Yes, we set high expectations on them, but they gave high-level performance up to this point. If they would have just performed like they did before, no one would be saying anything. But these guys have constantly regressed below the mean after they get paid mega contracts. And it's very, very disappointing. I would be very upset if I was a Chiefs fan, knowing that I'm stuck with this guy for the next 10 years, and he's finally showed his true colors when they go to pay him. Can he carry the team on his back? As of right now, I say no. No, he can't. He needs some help. And finally, my honorable mention that I have to throw in, it's a binding contract. Each show is Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben devoted his life to Jesus in the offseason, which I think is great. He lost a ton of weight. They said it's now Skinny Ben. Skinny Ben's back. He's going to be more mobile. He's going to get less injuries because he's more healthy. You know, his mind is God, family, football. He's not has any outside distractions. And he's been nothing but subpar and makes me wonder why he's still on the team. Quite embarrassing if you ask me, to say the least. But that is my list.
Yeah, I gotta love a list from you. There's always almost a Baltimore rivalry tie in almost anything with you talking about Baker, Ben, and Jackson. But yeah, that was fun. That was one of our best top 5s. I really enjoyed it. You know, gotta love using our big brains and able to talk trash about some of the best athletes in the world and put them in their place a little bit there. It's always a lot of fun. Let's move on to sort of our mid-year reviews of our original picks for some of these key awards and Super Bowl picks. I'll go first and I'll hand it off to you. I'll go through each of my picks for the individual awards and the Super Bowl, and I'll let you all know if I'm going to stick with it or if I'm going to change. So I'm going to start with Offensive Rookie of the Year. I originally picked Mac Jones in New England. I'm going to stick with that. I think he's been a great player as he's grown throughout the season. He's the best playing rookie of the bunch. No real doubt about that. He's got the Patriots at 4-4. They're right in the thick of it. I mean, especially if they make a playoff run and get a chance to maybe sneak into a wild card spot. I think he'll definitely get that award. Defensive Rookie of the Year. I wanted to go Micah Parsons. I decided to go Patrick Surtain. Well, I'm just going to go and be a homer here real quick and ride Micah Parsons and that sweet mother's milk, as Jerry Jones likes to say, and for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Surtain's been good, but Parsons has been really, really good. He's getting better every game. 4 tackles for loss in his most recent game. He's a pass rusher, can make plays in coverage too. He's been a really nice player. MVP, this is where I really started to go wrong. I picked Christian McCaffrey, running back for Carolina Panthers. You know, he's obviously a good player, and since he's gotten hurt, in the games that he hasn't started, Carolina's 1-4. They were 3-0 in the games he did. So some validation there. But the fact of the matter is, when you're hurt and miss 4 games, you can't be the MVP, especially when you're supposed to carry the team. So he's no longer going to be my pick for MVP. I'm going to kind of switch gears here a little bit. I know I'm going to kind of, I know a lot of momentum's on Stafford, but I think I'm going to go surprise here. I think Rodgers wins it again because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to really start to heat up once Devontae Adams gets back into the fold. And I'm curious if that tough NFC West, if the Rams, especially they played a few closer games now, if they start to lose a few games and start to taper off a little bit. So I'm going to switch my MVP pick from Christian McCaffrey to Aaron Rodgers. All right, so moving on to my Super Bowl picks. Originally, I had the Tennessee Titans and the Seattle Seahawks. Well, we talked about a big brain show. I look like a big old idiot with those 2 picks right now. Seattle, with the injuries to Russell Wilson, has underperformed, obviously. Definitely not going to go with them out of the NFC. Tennessee was starting to turn around with their big win against the Colts, and they've obviously beaten Buffalo and Kansas City. But now the injury to Derrick Henry, they're no longer a top contender. So I got to switch both picks, as embarrassing as that is. So in the NFC, I already brought up Aaron Rodgers. I think they're going to get home field. Beating Arizona was huge for this team. I think they're playing great. They're going to get healthier. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. They've been in the NFC Championship game the last 2 years. I think this is the year they break through. And in the AFC, look, I think it's wide open, but I really like the growth that Lamar Jackson has done, that passing game with that Baltimore offense. I think Cincinnati is underwhelmed, obviously lost the Jets. The Titans are hurt. Kansas City is not nearly as good like we talk about. I think this is the Ravens' time to make another move to the Super Bowl. So I'm changing up my Super Bowl pick to Baltimore out of the AFC and Green Bay out of the NFC.
I can't disagree with you there. But for me, my offensive rookie of the year, I picked Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's up there in the top 3. I think with the loss of Calvin Ridley, he has more chances to shine in this offense. I think Cordero Patterson is going to help open up so they don't completely focus on him. I'm going to stick with it and give it a shot. He's not the highest rated pick to make, but I think he has a outside chance here, and I'm gonna stick with my gut and see if he can keep moving on down the road. For my defensive rookie of the year, I have Micah Parsons. It's no brainer for me to stick with him. I think he's the clear-cut number 1 defensive rookie right now. He would even have a outside chance at being the defensive player overall of the year so far. So crazy for me to move on from him. My MVP pick was Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams, and right now it seems as if it's Stafford's award to lose. If he keeps playing the way he does, I don't see any reason why he doesn't have a good chance to win the award, so I'm going to stick with that. And now to some changes. My Super Bowl picks, LA Rams, Buffalo Bills. I'm going to stick with the Rams. I think they have a good chance to make it there. I think Green Bay is going to be tough to move past, but I think it is possible. So I'm going to stick with that for consistency's sake. There's no move. There's no reason to move on from them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But on the Buffalo side of the ball, I've seen some weakness in them. I've seen some regression. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. You said it. It's really convinced me. Baltimore's going to go to the Super Bowl this year, and they're going to beat the Los Angeles Rams. That's my picks, and I'm sticking to it.
Write it down. Like it. Love it. All right. That's a great recap of our list. I think we're getting close to the end here. Real quick, though, for Thursday Night Football, we've got Jets at Colts this week. Real quick, Miles, what's your gut? You got Jets winning or Colts winning?
Jets.
Oh, riding it. I'm going Indianapolis. I think the Jets got caught lightning in a bottle. I don't think they catch it again. So you're going Jets. I'm going Indianapolis. Thursday Night Football. All right. That's our show. Miles, you got any final words for us?
As always, a big thanks to everyone who has stuck around and listened to us. We are changing some stuff up. We're going to be releasing 2 episodes a week now. This one episode will be a little bit longer than it normally is because of the trade deadline. There was so much news this week. We had to get through all of it. But we're going to be starting to release 2 45-minute shows, I believe, on Thursday and Saturday. So keep your eyes peeled for those, as well as throughout the week releasing clips from those shows. If anyone wants a smaller, more digestible bite to take, as always, you can find us on smishow.com. You can search for us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify Podcasts at Saturday Morning Inspection. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter, SMI Football Show. We have a great week ahead of us. Great football. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yep, going to be a great weekend. As always, thanks to everyone. Please like, comment, subscribe, however you can and however you listen.